That guy right there, I mean, he made the choices to get out, and it was dangerous though, right? Sometimes it's a different ball game for some people, and his definition of success would just be living in freedom outside of a gang, right? And that, like, right there, I have the utmost respect for versus making $1 million.
Do you think that's just the way a capitalist system runs, that some people have to be poor and some people are going to be rich? And it's kind of hard to, break that cycle or break that chain based on whichever one you were born into, mindset-wise and environment-wise. What y'all feel about that?
I think it has 0% to do with capitalism and everything to do with broken world and, sin would be my answer to that, to be honest. I mean, there's going to be people who are going to be poor, not because of a system, but because of their choices. And the choices come from, a lot of times it's generational poverty, sure, but a lot of times all those choices are just coming from a, sinful hearted, broken person, right? So it has nothing to do with the system, right? I mean, under any system, there's going to be poor people and rich people because of, greed or sin or just whatever, right? I mean, and no, everyone could potentially go make plenty of money and do fine. It just comes down to, are you doing anything about it? Now, some people, you're born and you're kind of, you don't know what you don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know. So if you're growing up in an area that's like, pretty tough, like Los Angeles, in an area where there's gangs. I remember watching this TED Talk about this guy who was trying to get out of gang life, right? When he's like 12, they're like trying to make him pull the trigger, and do stuff like that, right? And he like doesn't have a dad for whatever reason. So it's like his mom, and they're like threatening his mom all the time. It's like, so he's like coerced into becoming a gang member, for some cartel group or whatever he was talking about. And, in order to get out, he literally just had to like sneak away with his mom to the other side of the country, right? Because, for example, gangs go across so many different cities, right? That guy right there, he made the choices to get out, and it was dangerous though, right? So sometimes it's a different ball game for some people. And his definition of success would just be living in freedom outside of a gang, right? And that, like, right there, I have the utmost respect for, versus making $1 million or not. I care less if that guy ever made $1 million. First off, that'd be an incredible success story. But two, even if he didn't, that guy just sounds amazing, right? Because he's trying to get out of a life that he's figuring into, where other people just fall into it and then just give up, right? There's a lot that goes into that, in so many different situations. And I think the takeaway, if you are well off, if you have two parents, for example, that's not most people now, right? You have two parents growing up. If your parents do, teach you things, right? And care about you and give you love, right? You have a duty to go help some people then. That's what I would say, right? Is you should go and help some people. And if everybody was just a little bit more philanthropic, right? Just trying to help some other people, like Jesus, right? There'd be a lot less poverty, is what I would say. So.
I agree. I think it's very interesting, especially in the society we live in, where people are they blame everything on capitalism, like literally everything. Like the reason the world is not amazing because capitalism is just like not exactly right. There's some nuance there, just a little bit, right? So from what I can tell, at least, is that from what a lot of people struggle with, is that it's not these people are just it's in the society that people should be poor. But I think a lot of people accidentally fall into this mindset of I'm here, so that's just where I'm supposed to be, right? And so they just fall into that where I'm already at the bottom, or I'm already at a certain level, and this is where people like me are supposed to be. It's like, well, that's up for debate thing, right? That's something you can expound upon, because people just live whatever they have and live with their means, and they have no intention on becoming bigger, growing themselves, because they're at a fixed mindset. And we can talk, we really gonna get into that, right? A little bit about the fixed versus growth mindset. But I think a lot of people are in fixed mindsets where they say, I've been told I should be at this level. My surroundings are this level. This is the only level I'm at. I won't ever move from this level, right? Because this is all the level I know. There's no other level, even if they're unattainable, right? So why would they even try? And I've heard that so often. People are like, I would do that, but that's not for me. It's like, what do you mean it's not for you? Being rich is not for you? What are you talking about? Like being wealthy, being someone who works really hard is not for you? What? Like how does that work exactly? So it's just something that I think people get stuck in a fixed mindset. It's like, this is all I know. This is all I'm capable of. I don't want to do anything else because I've been told this is all I can do. So I think that's where it comes from, a lot of at the home, right? With them being taught. That's why we need strong families. You need strong Christian held families, right? Where they held together beliefs, where your marriage, your children come first, and that's what drives the families. And God drives the family. You know what I'm saying? It's not just like, oh well, I'm bored today, or I don't feel like raising my kids. I'm gonna throw them at the school system. system. I'm gonna throw them in the daycare and I'm gonna leave them and I'm never gonna talk to them again. It's like, hey, or I don't encourage my kids on a day-to-day basis. I don't tell them, hey, come work with me, come to this, I just tell them, hey, it's part of life. I guess, your mom and dad are broke, so I guess you'll be broke too. It's like, what? What do you mean? So I think it all starts at the home, and I think people place everything on capitalism when there's so many nuances, so many. But that's my take. That's my take on it.
Just a quick story time. This might sound wild, but the way I wanted to first start better in my life is when I was young. I was too young to have a job, right? I was 14 years old, and I was like, how can I make some money? Because I knew I had some older friends, and they were going to work and stuff like that. So I was like, I want to make money, but I can't get a job. So it all started with me just researching how to make money. So I started doing a survey, and I didn't make any money, but maybe $10. But it was the greatest $10 in my life because I earned it all by myself. And then after that, it just started taking how to be rich, what is rich, what am I doing wrong? Some of the YouTube videos were complete trash and some were good. It was all about me being young, just opening myself up to these things, right? And so it's all about trial and error because you're not going to know what's the right thing to do. Only God knows the plans he has for you, right? So you kind of got to just put yourself out there and just have crazy faith and really just believe in yourself and believe that even if your business fails, you still going to learn from it. So everything is really gonna be a lesson or either a blessing. So that's how I take it. It's just always just trying, even when you don't want to.
How can we find the right woman, man? How can we guide our life and we can focus our mind to really find the correct woman for us who can help us on our mission and help us on this journey in our spiritual battles? You know what I mean? How do we find that? Where do you find a man? What do you got to do personally and internally to grow that? To put us on game, man.
So I'm gonna recommend a book that everyone read, and I'll say it twice so everyone can get it. But it's Single, Dating, Engaged, Married by Ben Stewart. Single, Dating, Engaged, Married by Ben Stewart. I recommended this to Christopher the other day too. So, and I would recommend this to any person who's in college, high school too. I read this book and it really shaped a lot of my dating going forward. And funny enough, once I actually implemented the strategies, that's when my wife and I started getting serious, and that ended up working out the way that it did, which is pretty awesome. The book kind of takes you through 4 different sections of life, right? So single. So if you're single, the biggest pressure by culture is to be dating, right? The biggest pressure by culture is to be dating, because if you're dating, it means you're attractive, it means you're loved, it's a status, right? And so we don't want to base things off of status, right? And so the book goes through, it's a biblical, based book by a pastor, right? And he just talks about singleness is a gift, right? When you're single, you have more time to serve, you have more time to grow, you have more time to do whatever you need to be doing. And in the book sense, it's going to be a Christ-centered sense, right? So it's a gift. The shortest amount of time in your life is actually the amount of time that you're single. So you should actually cherish it, right? You should look at that differently, because the mindset is all wrong, that there's something wrong with you if you're not dating. There's nothing wrong with you if you're not dating somebody, right? And you shouldn't feel bad. And I think women feel bad about that a lot. I need to be dating, right? Your value and worth does not come from the person that you're dating, and they cannot provide that for you. And that is not a healthy thing, right? They are not going to fix you, right? That's it. That's a you and God thing. God will fix you. No one else can, right? So use that singleness to become who you want to become, really doing the things that you love. And what the book talks about is don't go on a dating. You could go on a dating app. I actually had somebody meet on a pen pal, and they're Christians and whatever, and they're married and have 3 kids now. But what the point that he's making in the book is don't go searching to date someone. Spend your time in places that are valuable to you, and you'll meet someone who has the same value, right? So for example, volunteering. My wife and I met each other at Passion, which is a Christian conference down in Atlanta. If you've heard of it, you guys should go check it out. It's pretty awesome. That's where we met. And that's just something we both care about, right? It's a Christian conference in January, start your year off right, whatever. And we met there, and that's how we met. We were doing something we both loved and cared about, and happened to be part of a similar group where she randomly got invited, and then we hit it off, and so on and so forth, right? But do things that you love that are valuable to you, and you'll meet someone who's valuable to you, right? Who has the same values, right? Because that's where people will usually settle, is on the values, right? They'll find someone really attractive in the dating phase, and they'll get sort of stuck with them, right? They'll sort of I need this person, they'll become codependent. That's the word I was thinking of, right? And dating, instead of a status or feeling good, because so many people live with each other nowadays, where I think it gets really confusing and messy, and it hurts if it breaks, right? So there's a good line in there. If you're a man and you're dating a young woman, and you're talking to her, the first date, be very clear about your intentions. And what you do, this is straight from the book, I did not make this up. You basically sit down and you talk about your intentions. Hey, and your intentions for dating is to figure out if you're supposed to marry this person. You're supposed to figure out how you marry. You're not dating someone for 6 years, right? I think Ben recommended recommends like 18 months or so, right? You're figuring out, am I supposed to marry this person or not? And that's all dating is. And you're respectful. You're very respectful of her, right? And in fact, the book goes into treating her like a sister in Christ, right? So that's some no-nos there, right? With the sister, right? So, right? So that's what it talks about. Because when you get physical, things start to be a lot different, right? You start to really cloud your judgment because the physical stuff is you will look over things that are detrimental long-term. You will settle on things that you actually care about because it feels good, for example. And that is not a healthy way to figure out if you're supposed to marry this person or not. And so you sit down though, you have this conversation like, hey, listen, I like you. I like where this is going. I want to date you. I want to get to know you better. I'm trying to figure out if you will end up being my wife, and I'd like for you to do the same. But if it ever feels like it's wrong, and this is where you just give her a way out, just tell me, we can break it off. You don't have to feel pressure to stay with me. I only want you to want to be with me if you just really love who I am, and I'm not going to put on a facade. And I don't want you to put on a facade. I just want you to be you, and we're going to figure this out together. But I'm really enjoying what's going on right now, right? And you just sort of lay this foundational groundwork with your lady, and that way you never go through this phase where it's like, oh, she wants to break up, but she doesn't want to hurt your feelings. It's like, no, just tell me. Just break up with me. It'll be fine. It's not a big deal. We're mature adults, right? We're trying to figure out if we're getting married. This is not a status thing. And you're very clear about those things, and that dating is going to go a lot better. Because if you do want to break up, it's going to be clean. It's not going to hurt as bad. You're not going to lose all your friends over it. Like some people's like, oh, they're with her friends now, and now they're not mine or whatever. You're going to kill that drama. Because if that drama happens again, it's just going to leave you kind of burned. So in the engaged, right? So the engaged is like getting your life together with her, right? So trying to get those together. And when you're married, it's supposed to be a reflection of Christ, right? So I would just read that book. But most people are probably in that single or dating category. You can read more about the engaged married. But that's what I would say. And that really helped me. It worked out really well for my wife and I. We just felt like we could talk about things. And the whole thing was like, no, here's some things that are non-negotiable. Was that you or not? And we would just talk about things. We're very open and honest and direct. And it's just good. It's a great foundational book. I hope that answers your question.